anybody who's getting into the studio to record first needs to have a very clear vision of what it is that they want, because you don't want to be experimenting inside a studio.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to come into the studio well prepped. You want to come into a studio knowing what you want to record.
What exactly is the role of producer? Who's a producer? Who's a composer? Who's an arranger? Who's a lyricist?
Now, a producer's job role is essentially the person who has the vision of what the end result needs to sound like from a sonic perspective, what the sound of each of these instruments is going to be, what the performance perspective, which is how the performance needs to be. Or working with a good producer will definitely help you in understanding where you need to refine your performance or where you need to refine aspects of your song. I read some report that said that a huge percentage of Indians have like high frequency hearing loss by definition, because the environment itself is so loud. And I wish sometimes clients would understand that it's for their own good that recording engineers should not record more than 8 hours.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Sound Dada podcast. I am Malay and today we are in for a sonic treat. We are at the truly special space, a space that holds so much value for me because I started my professional journey from here. A studio that has been a haven for both budding and established artists in Pune and around for over a decade. My guest today is the founder of Grace Park Audio, Ronak. And Ronak, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And he's truly a genius when it comes to sound. And I've seen his journey evolve from like a small space that he had to this new beautiful space in Baner that you have right now. So tell me about this new space. Having moved from the old facility while your focus is still on the educational side of things.
Yeah. So most people know Grace Park as it was in the previous studio that we were in.
Yeah.
We've recently shifted to this new location, which is in this nice new fancy commercial building as opposed to where we were before.
Yeah.
So this is a 5,000 square feet space with 6 studios, 2 live rooms. And I think the studio now is built for the kind of work that we do today. So when we'd earlier started Grace Park, when we'd moved from our earlier location in Model Colony to Baner for the first time, the studio was then really built around a lot of live recording. It was built around, doing live performance sessions and stuff like that. And we had a huge live room. And we still have a big live room, but now we've set up the space in such a way that, we're optimally utilizing space for control room so that people can do more production work, more trackling work, more mixing work, which is where the work is now shifted towards.
Wow. So why Grace Park?
So the name?
Yeah, the name. Why? Where did the name come from? I think I never asked you this.
Yeah. So actually there are many stories that we sort of put behind this. And the funny thing is we kept the name Grace Park because when you're working with music, you don't see music in black and white. You're working with different styles of music. You're working with different kinds of people. So grey for not seeing things in absolutes. And grey back then, funnily enough, because we were not even doing it for that long, but was for grey as in grey hair for experience. But we were just like people doing it for like 5 years and we thought we were Grace Park stands for that. But yeah, I think the real reason was that, and also because that was the only domain that was available then.
Oh. Okay. How did you get into sound?
So, I think I knew from early on when I was, I had gone for the first time. I remember going to a recording studio as a musician, and I saw like the engineer. Actually, before that, if I really think back, funnily enough, the guy who's wired this place is also somewhat involved in this story. So his name is Denzel. He's this amazing genius.
Yeah.
Like if you think I'm a genius, this guy's on another level of genius.
Yeah.
So I used to play in a metal band back in the day.
Yeah.
And this guy used to be like a live sound engineer, and you'd see him on the console and he's like mixing stuff and this massive console, and you have no idea. I had no idea what he was doing on there, but I was so fascinated by what he was doing. And then after that, when we wanted to record our music, we went to a studio for the first time. And the whole process just fascinated me. And I think at some point I realized that I enjoyed being an engineer more than I enjoyed playing music. I mean, I of course enjoyed being an artist and playing music, but for me it was always helping other people put their ideas down. And that's what gave me more joy. And that's when I realized that this is something that I want to do.
So I always have this question for a lot of musicians or engineers. So if I come across sound engineers, I'll always ask them, are you a musician? Or if I come across a musician, I'll be like, are you a sound engineer as well? Correct. So what is that relation that, a musician or an engineer has?
I think it's a fine line, right? Because if to really be a good engineer, you also need to understand a musician's perspective. And today it's also the case that to be a good musician, you also need to be an engineer. So the lines have definitely gotten blurred over the years, where definitely a good musician has to be good at their craft first and then have to figure out all these other things. But there is always this line where musicianship and tech sort of are aligned with each other. And there are some people who are just naturally inclined more towards tech. Like if you think about you and I, we are both like tech oriented, or Nitin, who's probably more on the spectrum of
he's
the
next level.
And then there's say people like Sanyant, who's not at all tech savvy, but he's a great musician. So I think there's like, when you are also into music and you also like tech and you like certain technical aspects, that's when you sort of then start getting into this boundary between where this art and science meets. And that's what I think sound engineering is, like a perfect marriage of art and science.
So, but then see, sound itself is such a vast field, right? Like you'll have music in it, you'll have film sound in it, you'll have live sound in it.
Correct.
You'll have sync sound in it, like so many, game sound,
Correct.
So many things. So then what actually, like how do you know, okay, in sound engineering, this is the specific thing that I want to go into? And does GSA also enable the students to into that process?
So, first thing I would say is that, see, if you look at every single field, which is, be it film sound, live sound, I think the technical aspects are the same, right? The core principles of what audio is and how it works is the same. It's just the philosophy of how it's applied is different. Like let's take for example, what a live sound engineer does versus what a studio engineer does. So a live sound engineer is also mixing, but he's mixing in a scenario where the dynamic range is how loud your PA can get. Versus where a studio engineer is doing it for limited dynamic range of what you can do within your digital system or whatever, right? And it's the same sort of tools you're using, the same EQ, compression, reverb effects, so on and so forth. Here, the idea is, in a live scenario, the idea is to get excitement for that performance in that moment in time. Here, it's to capture those aspects that you can, that can bring out the emotion every single time you play the track, or so that it translates well on different systems, so on and so forth. So, I think first of all, today it's important to first learn what these principles are, and then you can find, okay, this is the niche that I want to really build in, and then go ahead and sort of build that niche forward. And that's what we try to do through the academy. Our entire course is designed in such a way that the first 10 months of the course, we focus on building these core principles, where we first spend 3 to 4 months on learning about the technical side of things, which is where we learn about tools like microphones, speakers, signal processing. We understand how to implement these tools. Then we start slowly exploring different styles, or rather understanding how to apply these in different avenues, like how to make if you're producing music also, how do you produce music for films? And if you're in the technical side, then how do you apply these technical skills into game sound, live sound, acoustics, audio electronics, film sound, so on and so forth.
So what kind of students should be looking forward to join the course? I mean, say suppose if I am interested in doing say only mixing, how is the entire pedagogy what is it,
Pedagogy. Yeah.
how is the entire pedagogy going to help me in honing my skills?
So if you want to just learn mixing and mastering, I think a lot of people think that, they can come join a course and they'll learn how to mix. Trust me, it's not that easy. And even I tell most people who are joining this course also that I will teach you framework of how I mix, right? So let's say if I'm teaching in my classes, if let's say I'm teaching a mixing class or Nitin's teaching or whoever's teaching or you're teaching, right? What is important to understand is that you can only learn what one person is doing. What most people think is that, okay, we'll go see what this guy is doing and we'll apply it to our stuff and it will work. It doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah.
It's like what you see online, that if you want to record a good acoustic guitar, put a mic on the 12th fret at 4 inches away from the 12th fret and it'll sound great. No, that's not how it works. And similarly, sitting in a classroom, you can understand one person's workflow. But what I believe the way to really understand is to first understand what the tools are, then really work in an environment where you can get good feedback. And I think that's the key to becoming a good mix engineer.
What feedback?
So doing shitty mixes, understanding where you're going wrong, and then learning how to fix them.
Also the vocal feedback, not the sound feedback. Okay, sorry, you were saying, yeah.
So I was saying that basically, say for example, I am a student who's joined the course.
Yeah.
Okay, I start making mixes. I've come into the course, my mixes are not sounding good. And they could not be sounding good for multiple reasons. A, I don't have good monitoring. I don't understand how my speakers work, or I don't even understand the concept of how translation works. So I start doing mixes. I go to my mentors, teachers, I ask them, okay, what do you think of what this mix sounds like? Then I get feedback, okay, this is the thing that I didn't understand, or I didn't do this right, or my separation is too much, or my mixes are sounding too dirty, or whatever it is, right? I go back, I fix that, I learn how to improve that, and I keep doing this practice over and over again. By the time you're done with your 20th mix, you'll be a way better mix engineer than somebody who is just starting out, probably doing all the courses, watching all Mix with the Masters or whatever, but not having done any mixes. So I think the more important aspect is the practice that will help you become a better mix engineer than to just probably join a course and want to learn how to mix and master. So anyway, coming back to your earlier question, the course is not just about learning how to mix and master. It's about the stuff that happens outside of the classroom. It's the stuff that happens, the learning that happens outside the classroom. That is what I think actually makes this course special.
I have so many questions for you. Basically, when I was learning, and I asked you about mixing and mastering, I was often told that mixing is 80% of your recording. Can you shed a little light on that?
Yeah. I think honestly, the mix engineer is furthering the vision of what the recording engineer has done. Right? So if those two people are aligned, then you can have something that sounds great, and which is actually what a good producer also does, right? The good producer's job role is to find the right people and to align all of those people to get the end result that it should sound like. So yes, I would say that every step matters equally. So yes, recording is a big part, and then the mix engineer taking what the recording engineer has done and building on that, and then the mastering engineer taking what the mix engineer has done and building on that, and finding that right balance in communication and creative vision is what actually makes it work. So I would say it is true that it all starts with the recording and then furthering that vision. Because even if you might be the best mix engineer, we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
We've gotten shitty stems, you can't really do stuff with it.
Yeah.
So
there are a lot of courses online.
Yeah.
There's a lot of courses in person.
Yeah.
But also, what digitization has enabled is for people to have their own set of like equipments. Like there are cheap equipments, cheap as in like cheap but good, but cheap and not that good.
Yeah.
All kinds are there. So in the previous answer, you mentioned about the speakers and like how they are tuned. But the way a room is treated, that affects quite a bit. Can you shed a little light on the acoustic side of?
Yeah. So acoustics is a huge part of. I mean, I say that probably because I love the science of how physics of sound works in a room, and I do this also apart from building studios for myself. I build studios for others also, but acoustics is a huge part of any. In fact, I would argue that your speakers and your room are the two biggest components of any audio engineer or a producer, because that's the one system that's going to define all the decisions that you make. And if you have a faulty listening environment, everything that you try to do, no matter how good your ears might be or how dedicated you might be, if you don't know what to look for, you might not be able to get the right sound out of it, right? So I think nowadays there are a lot of tools that can actually make a shitty room also sound good. Yeah, there are tools like SonarWorks. There's like, if you get into the fancier tools, there is a bunch of room correction tools that exist out there. I think there's a cheap set of tools like IK Multimedia has something called Arc Studio. You can use all these things to fix a room, but acoustics play a huge role in helping you make good decisions inside your room. But you don't need too much money to have a decent sounding room now, right? So if you even pick up like a cheap pair of speakers, you have some decent room correction going on, and you do basic room treatment, you can have an actually decent sounding room in which you can make good mixed decisions, I would say. So acoustics matters a lot, but now I think tech has come to a point where even if you have a bad room, the speakers may not sound great, but you'll have a good reference point.
Speaking of acoustics, your new studio is really, really well done.
Thank you.
There are multiple rooms.
Yeah.
You have a student section as well for students to focus on their mixes and their studies. What was the primary reason to shift from the old space to this one?
So there were multiple reasons, but I would say the primary reason to shift was that we were growing as an academy and we needed more space for our students to be in. And honestly, we had sort of retrofitted our studio because we grew as, the numbers in the academy also grew. So then we sort of built this space, and then, like I told you earlier also, the new space is designed for the kind of requirements we have today. We have multiple control rooms where students can book these 4-5 studios out for their own projects. They can also use the space to work where they want to, use them as control rooms or live rooms. And that also gives them the whole, point of this studio. The whole point of this academy has been that you come and you get to use the infrastructure to work on your own music. So we have like 6-7 studios that students can book out and now use for their own projects. So yeah.
Wow. What specific acoustic, treatments did you have in the space? Because when I went, you said, okay, and even right now you said, you can use that either a control room or a live room.
Yeah.
What exactly is a control room? What is a live room? First, start with that. And then you also said, okay, I can record in that corner and I can be sitting in this corner and I can still get,
Correct. Yeah. So a control room and a live room are for two different purposes. A control room is where the engineer is listening and monitoring. So the acoustics of a control room are designed for the sweet spot where the engineer is listening and where you ideally want to have a flat frequency response, which means that you want as little deviation between the different frequency ranges that a human can hear. That's what the goal of a control room is. Whereas a live room is actually designed, it's live as in stands for reflections, where there's a lot of reflections, and the reason why we have a live room is for performers to perform in.
Okay.
So most people think that you should go to a studio which sounds very dead, or you should not have any reflections in a room, but that's not how live rooms have been designed. In fact, a live room that has a lot of reflections can add a lot of character to the sounds that you're recording.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and you can also, based on how you want to dampen certain sounds, you have these things that we call gobos that you can move around. And if you want to, say for example, dampen one certain side of the room, you can do that. And that's what the live room is. So we have studios X, Y, and Z, which have been designed in such a way that you can use them to monitor. So the front half of the room is very tight and controlled in terms of the reflections of the room, and the back half of the room is slightly more reflective with diffusion, so that even if you record an instrument in that room while you're monitoring there, it could still sound live
great.
enough.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was the idea in designing studios X, Y, and Z. And we also wired all of these studios to each other. So like I said, in the old studio, we didn't have the freedom to do this.
Yeah.
So you're like, if you're building something from scratch,
Yeah.
now might as well, build connections
Yeah.
into every single room.
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare. I thought it would be easy, but it was a crazy couple of months when we were trying to figure out how to wire all of the studios. So essentially, you could potentially be sitting here and then record this in studio in the corner of the facility, or you could just record, from any part of the studio into the control room. So all of that stuff is wired and it's all analog. So you can, patch stuff into whichever preamp or do whatever you want. Yeah.
So I remember, when I used to teach, and even right now, there's a lot of hands-on and practical, or an internship or like a studio assistant. There are a lot of things for every studio.
Correct.
That students kind of help in live projects. How does that kind of affect the entire curve in terms of student growth? If you have any specific examples or success stories of students?
Yeah, there's many actually. The last couple of years, I think we've seen so many students have gone on to do good work. So I think the idea really came to me of assistantship from when I was hiring students. So I used to also teach in a few other schools before I started Grace Park. And after every course is over, I get emails. I still do get emails from every single academy of people saying we want to work at the studio.
Yeah.
And I hired a few people to assist, and some people that I had taught also that I thought, okay, they've learned in the school for 3 years. They'll be able to handle stuff inside the studio. When I called them inside the studio, they had zero hands-on experience. As in, it's not their fault because they were in a learning environment. And
Correct.
I thought maybe, why not fill this gap that clearly exists in the market right now? And that is where the idea of doing internships for students inside the course started from. So the idea is that you need to have assisted inside the studio. You need to have worked on projects inside the studio so that when you go out into the real world and you work on client projects, you actually understand, okay, how do I communicate with the client? How do I, work quickly when a client is in a room? How do I give feedback? All these soft skills that you don't actually learn otherwise. Yeah. And the other reason was also that it helps a lot of these students, get their foot through the door when they're working with other people. So say, for example, when we're working on a film or one of my students is then, let's say, assisting on a project where we're mixing the film in surround or in Atmos or whatever, they get to put their name as assistant engineers. And when they get to put their name as assistant engineers, that sort of gives credibility to the student themselves. Yeah, they go on and they put these projects on their portfolio. Anybody who's looking to hire someone would obviously give more credence to the fact that okay, these guys have actually worked inside a studio. They know what they're doing. Yeah.
So you mentioned something about spatial audio. So your new studio is equipped with Atmos, immersive sound, which was the need of the hour. Even in the previous studio, we felt okay, we need to have it. What are the benefits? How, what students get from it? Where is the industry going towards?
So Dolby Atmos is essentially a new form of immersive audio. Immersive audio meaning that usually when we listen to music, we're used to listening to it coming from the left speaker and the right speaker, right? Which is what we call stereo. And immersive audio is when you have multiple speakers that are placed in this axis, which is in front of you and around you. And there's also height speakers, which is called the height channel, which also lets you place sound not just in this 2D axis, but also in this 3D axis. And this format of audio is called Dolby Atmos. So we used to watching films and all that stuff in Atmos. What has really happened is that because of the way that Apple Music now integrates Dolby Atmos over a pair of earphones, now you can actually consume that audio almost like it's placed around you. So you can do that with a pair of earphones.
But how does that happen? Because there are two sources. Correct. And you're saying that you can hear it from your...
So it's kind of trickery. It's not really stuff that's playing around you, but the tools that the Dolby Atmos renderer or other form, there are lots of these other renderers. What they use is they essentially trick your brain into thinking that the sound is coming from behind you, and how they do it is by applying a very specific time filter or like EQ filter. So if you see, the way that our ears are built is that if a sound plays from ahead of us, there's certain set of frequencies that our ear will focus because of the shape of our ears. But if something plays from behind us, certain frequencies will get cut off because of the shape of our ear. So it essentially applies that filter and time filters on the sound to make your ears think that it's playing from behind, which is called binaural, which has existed for a long time, right? So it's this clever management of putting. So when you play the source, when there are 7.1.4 is what it's called, which is the one format of Atmos. You have 7.1.4, you have 916, so on and so forth, which is 9 speakers in around you, and then 6 speakers on top. And 714 is when you have 7 speakers around you, which is your left, center, right, your 4 satellites, and then your 4 height channels.
But then how does it translate? Like, say for example, if I go to watch a film outside, they have so many speakers. So then how does it translate from like a 7.1.4 to like a 32.1, 32.8?
Correct. So it actually, the format, when you actually listen to it in a theater, it's the same format. It's just different speakers that are placed so that, different people at different points in the room can hear the height channels and stuff. So when you actually listen to it over a pair of earphones, that's where you're not getting the real experience of what Atmos is, because when you listen to it over earphones, it's not as clear as how you would be able to hear when the sound is playing in front of you or behind you. So that's definitely one downside. But what it does is it opens up a way for everybody to consume it. So the best experience of Atmos will be when you sit in a studio like this, or any studio that has been wired to play Dolby Atmos. But if not, you could also use, nowadays you have cheap sound bars that come with Atmos. So the way that these sound bars, some of them work, is that they have some speakers that are placed on top of the sound bar that are angled towards the ceiling. And then they reflect sound from the ceiling, and they give you sort of like a fake feeling of what the height of that. But there's a lot of this newer technology that's been implemented that people are consuming. And the thing is, the reason why it's working is because a lot of people are buying into it, which means that almost everything that's being sold on the market today you will find that in any bracket there are different sound bars that have the Atmos logo on it, right? So if people are going to consume music or consume music, I'm not really sure where that's really stands right now. But if they're going to consume their OTT content, their films, their television, all of that stuff on these soundbars, then eventually people will want to push to mix their stuff in Atmos, and which is why the need of building that here was there. And the other most important reason for doing all of this is that I've always felt that even as engineers and as a studio, it's super important to adapt different technologies as they're coming in, right? And even more so if you have an academy and if students want to learn. So if you want to really have people go out and try doing new stuff, you need to be able to teach that. And that is something I wanted to do for a long time, but there were limitations. And in fact, this time around, we had the fortune of Neumann coming on and really becoming so this studio is now a Neumann Experience Center, and they've helped us with their their technical expertise, with their understanding of how we can set up the room, and they've given us these amazing speakers, and these speakers have really, and honestly I think it sounds great because of the kind of speakers we have right now.
Wow, nice. So since you're talking about newer technology and adapting to newer technology, let's
talk about AI.
Yes.
Yes.
So I feel AI, or like kind of this intelligence has always been around
Yeah.
in the industry, be it in the form of like plugins and
Yeah.
all of that, right?
Yeah.
Just that, like the way now it's working, it's like a whole new level of tech.
Yeah.
So how has that affected the workflow, one, and how are y'all adapting to it, or what are the changes that you see coming?
So, we really saw the first signs of this about a year ago. We also run this other part of our organization at Grace Park, which does voiceovers, and we started noticing that a lot of people were now starting to build and starting to record voices using these AI tools. And you might know some of these names, right?
Yeah.
So we started slowly seeing that people are now getting used to using these AI voices in their projects, in their ads. These are usually smaller projects where the budgets are lower, but that's where we really started first experimenting with AI. So we thought a lot of people don't really know about these tools. Why don't we use these tools to upskill what we're doing? So I can give you an example. We were working on an ad for a well-known brand, and towards the end of the project, how it is that eventually everything's done, and then the client was they were like, okay, we're not happy with this voiceover, we want to get this voiceover done again, and they're like, no, we don't want a male voiceover, we want to switch to a female voiceover. So we used the tool that literally turned that same male voiceover into a female voiceover. We sent it to the client, and the client was super happy. So that's when we realized that we could really truly use this tool to increase our productivity by so much. Yeah. And the thing is, it was done in Hindi, so it's using your enunciation, the style of the way that you're speaking. It's just changing the texture of your voice.
Wow.
So that's when we realized that there's actually potential. If you know about these tools and you want to do something with them, you can do something productive. And then we've done a bunch of projects since where we've used these tools in our workflows. So yeah, I think AI is definitely taking over, and we've taken over some aspects of this. But I truly see it at this point in time, and with this stuff, it's always evolving. I feel like it's a tool that you can use to increase productivity for sure. And if you're smart enough to understand how to use these tools in your workflows, you can really do some really good stuff. Like you can really be super productive using these tools. I can give you a couple of more examples. We recently did another ad for a very well-known brand. You would not believe it. The entire film is done with AI.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, when the director came to me and he told me that, hey, we're working on this ad, and he said that we're working with this one agency that they specifically work only with AI, and I'm like, dude, I have to do this. I don't care about how much money we're making on this, but I have to do this to understand what's happening in the industry today.
Wow.
And the entire thing was shot. And this is a big brand, mind you. It's not like, somebody doing like a small Instagram ad or something. So we got the ad, and you could tell it was made with AI. That there are those usual telltale signs.
Yeah.
So you could tell that it was a mix of CG and AI put together, but it was really well done. I think the director also had like a good vision. He was working with a bunch of tech people, but he actually pulled it off really well. They couldn't figure out the music, fortunately. So they came to us, and while we were doing that project, we thought of, why not exercise our skills of how we could potentially use AI in this scenario. So the client had given us a brief. We fed that brief into a bunch of these artificial intelligence tools. We got a lot of AI slop, and we got some decent ideas. So we were like, okay, you know what? Maybe we could try using bits from here. We could try building stuff using this. And then eventually we built stuff from scratch using some inspiration from different places. And that's how we pulled it off. So I still feel that there's a lot more evolution that will happen. Like if you've seen nowadays, I've worked with a few clients in the studio who have written their songs using Suno or Udio or some of those platforms, and they've come in here, taken off the vocals, re-recorded their vocals, and gotten it mixed and put out. And they're actually not bad songs. You'd be surprised. So they've produced the entire thing. They've prompted Suno to write a track. They've taken bits and pieces, split the stems. They've taken bits and pieces. They've re-recorded the vocals. They've rearranged certain aspects of it, and they've put out a track that's actually not half bad. Yeah.
Wow. Apart from music creation, have you come across any AI platform which, like you said, there is AI for films, AI for
Yeah.
voice,
Yeah.
AI for music.
Yeah.
But have you come across anything such as like sound, recreating some sound effects or
Yeah.
SFX or
Yeah.
yeah?
So 11 Labs does that now. So you can prompt a
Oh.
sound and you can get a sound effect for it. It's weird, but it doesn't sound very nice. I'll be honest. At least in the scenario that I used it for. But yeah, you could just type in page flipping sound and it'll give you like the sound for it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. It's the other issue with AI right now is low bitrate. The quality is horrid. Like I wouldn't use it in, like if it was layered in something that had many
Multiple
things going
things.
on, I
That's
could
fine.
somehow mask it. But by itself, the sounds are not the best quality. But I think this is stuff that will be figured out
Taken care
over
of,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for a musician who is just starting out, what is one simple but yet effective tip that you usually tell them how to like get into their recording their first song? So see, I mean, of course, there's AI. We spoke about AI, and like so I wanted to like emphasize on the importance of demos and getting into the actual recording process. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that anybody who's getting into the studio to record first needs to have a very clear vision of what it is that they want their end result to look like. So the best way to do that is, like you said, demos. And when I say demos, what I'm saying is it may not be the best performance of your song, but it should at least have all the parts down of what you need to record, where what needs to come in, how should the performance be at that specific point in time or in that section of the song. What are the different layers that you want in your song, what are the different elements that you want in your song. And that's very important because you don't want to be experimenting inside a studio.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to come into the studio well prepped. You want to come into a studio knowing what you want to record,
Yeah.
and then you can go back home and add in stuff that you want to later. So prep before coming to a studio is super important, and I think a lot of musicians don't understand that, and it's obviously not their fault because they're doing this whole process for the first time, which is why working with a good producer helps, because they've done this so many times. They can just guide you through the process. They can maybe even tell you if you're at the stage to go to a studio or not. Yeah, many a times like I've seen musicians who go into a studio and they're not playing on time at all, or the performance is just all over the place. Yeah, so I think a good producer or working with a good producer will definitely help you in understanding where you need to refine your performance or where you need to refine aspects of your song.
In India, I feel the word producer is quite abused.
Yeah.
So can you
For
shed a
sure.
little light on that? What exactly is the role of producer? Who's a producer? Who's a composer? Who's an arranger? Who's a lyricist? Who's a musician? Who's a session player? Who's like all the roles that
Yeah.
go behind creating a song?
Yeah, I think that'll take 3 hours itself to just sit down and
Okay.
talk. But yeah, but I feel like it's weird because we have so many different terms for it. We have like these terms which are specific to our like scenario also. We have programmer, music programmer, or like arranger, stuff like this, right? So if you look at a song, if you were to break it down, let's say we have like a singer-songwriter who's written a song. Now the singer-songwriter needs somebody to play different instruments on their song. So they're going to go out and hire session musicians. Session musicians are veteran musicians who can adapt their musicality to work for different styles of, like I've seen some really good session musicians. You put them in a room with to record say a song like a jazz song, and they'll be able to adapt their playing for that style of music. And you put them in a room with a bunch of rock musicians or to record like a something heavy, and they'll be able to belt on the kit and really get that loud sound. So session musicians essentially are musicians who will work with different songwriters and help them sort of perform these different parts that they need in a song. Now a producer's job role is essentially the person who has the vision of what the end result needs to sound like from a sonic perspective, what the sound of each of these instruments is going to be, what the performance perspective, which is how the performance needs to be. So say for example, in a song which has a verse and a chorus, how should the singer perform in the verse? When the chorus hits, what sort of energy are you expecting? What sort of performance are you expecting? What sort of vocal production is going to happen? Or rather, when I say vocal production, what I mean is what you could do things like add in harmonies, add in different layers and stuff like that. And you also, so the producer's job essentially is to tie the vision, bring the vision of the artist to life from a sonic perspective, from a performance perspective, and helping put these different musicians together so that they can really bring this raw idea to life, which then the audience can consume essentially. That's what the job role of a producer is.
What is a recording engineer? Like, are they related? Well,
so a recording engineer can sometimes be a producer also, but usually a recording engineer's job is just the technical side of things, right? So let's say if I'm going into a studio to record drums today, now the producer will give me a reference that, hey, I want this very tight sounding drum kit. So now the recording engineer's job is to understand, okay, the producer's given me this idea. And usually you'd find that different producers will work with different engineers who understand how to bring their vision to life, right? So if let's say if I'm a producer and if I work with this engineer, I can tell this engineer, okay, I want the drum kit to sound this specific way. Now the engineer will go ahead and think, okay, this is the kind of mic that I'm going to use. This is the kind of mic preamp that I'm going to use. This is how I'm going to use these different tools like EQ, compression, reverb, effects, etc. to really shape and dial in the sound. And that is what a recording engineer does.
See, more than the mix engineers, like you spoke about a producer and a recording engineer.
Correct.
And the producer is telling the recording engineer, ki I want a tight sounding kit. Now, will this tight sounding kit change from an engineer to engineer? Why is that?
So yes, that will change. And which is why I think, having good references is super important. References, when I say the word references, what I mean is, understanding, when I say like what you're essentially saying is that the definition of tight can mean 10 different things to 10 different people,
yes.
Correct? So I think you have to really nail down what that means. And which is why I think chemistry works, right? So when I say for example, if I'm working with somebody that I've worked with for so long, when I say I want it to sound this way, they exactly know what I'm referring to. And that's, I think, one big problem in audio is that we usually use words like warm or bright. I mean, bright is still obvious, but like silky or smooth and stuff like this, right?
Yeah.
Adjectives to define sound, which is not the best way to do it. So I think if you're working with somebody new, and if you want to define tight sound, it would be best shown with an example of what that sound is. Maybe this record that I really like the sound of drums on this record and I want to replicate parts of it. This is the kind of sound that I'm looking for. And then you try to achieve that sound. Yeah.
Got it. You mentioned about records or albums. Now you, in your experience, have seen a lot of musicians come and record probably singles, an EP, and albums, right? What is the process of recording an album? How is it different from recording an EP to how is it different from recording a single?
We don't really record as many albums anymore, to be honest.
But you know what? The album culture is coming back.
Slowly, yes, for sure.
And there are so many artists that are releasing albums right now. Like I have just come across, like I can name so many that are releasing album within like the next 6 months.
Yeah. So the culture is definitely coming back, but I think post-COVID it had sort of gotten into this whole, everybody was releasing singles. Yeah. So I think the prep that's required for an album is massive. It's not an easy task to pull off because for an album you really need to have vision of whatever your 8-10 songs. You really need to nail all of those things in. It's easier to go in, finish a single and come out because you can, commit your time and energy to that one song. You're done writing that song, you're done giving it that energy, and then you can stop. But when you're working with multiple songs, it requires a lot more effort and it's a lot more challenging to do for an artist and in fact for the entire team. But it's also more rewarding. For me, it's definitely more rewarding working on a bunch of songs because I've always consumed music that way. And for me, I also feel like there's a much larger story that you can tell when you're working with these 7-8 songs in an album. So the prep that's required for an album is a lot more, obviously, because you've got to get all of your musician, all of your parts in, and the amount of stuff that you have to keep a track of, and the parallel sort of things that you have to do when you're doing an album is on a different level. You've done this. I've seen you spend countless nights mixing stuff. So yeah.
But I wanted to know, okay, sonically, how do you bind all these 8 songs together and still be like so distinct?
I honestly, sometimes even I have the same question, right? Because I'm like, we've recorded all of this stuff. I think it's the way that the recording is done, because when you're recording an album, you're usually doing stuff in chunks. So you're recording, say, drums for your 8 songs, usually together. That's what your foundation of your song is going to be. So you'll record the drums first. Then you'll go in and record your bass. And you're recording all of these in that maybe an extended 2 or 3 day period, right? So you're in that same frame of mind. You're miking, your sound, all of that stuff is same, and then you're building on that foundation. So there may be variants, but it usually, because the recording is done in that same space, in that same environment, your building blocks are the same, and then you can change things on top as different songs differ, and then but it still sonically sounds like the same space, and I think it's because of the way that these recordings are done. I've also done some albums where stuff has been recorded over different spaces. And you can tell that it sounds slightly different. Those songs, in fact, some of the new Wandling stuff, you can tell that it sounds different. Songs do sound a little different. That actually also is a cool approach to it. That also sounds very cool.
So you have seen so many students being trained by you or your faculty. You have seen so many musicians, like you name the musician and has come to your studio, right? And so what are the biggest like mistakes? So I want to ask this from 2 perspectives. What are the biggest mistakes that musicians make when they hit the studio? And what are the mistakes that students make when they are in the studio?
So I think musicians, from my perspective, I think I have a very easy answer. It's a little surprising how quick this answer came to me. But I think, and I know it's easy from my perspective to say this, but it's staying with your music for too long, spending too much time on something. So I read this, or rather, I don't know if I read it or if I saw it somewhere, but there's this one very interesting John Mayer interview where he says that, when he makes music, he will write it for that moment. And that's what music is made for, that moment, right?
Correct.
And then you put it out there and it's done. But what happens when you make music? Like, let's say we're making an album. That just goes on for 6 months. And then you're deliberating it over. You're listening to it 1,000 times. You're confusing yourself. And it is your baby at the end of the day. So like I said, it's easy for me to sit on the other side and say that, hey, you shouldn't spend so much time on it. But I think a healthy amount of separation from that will... Like, I've seen so many musicians who would do like 10 times more productive output if they could just take that step back. And it would sound, what the funniest thing is, it would sound better if they were just able to take that step back. But I think that's what being a creative person is.
Yeah. But then so this is from a musician's perspective. So aspiring audio engineers, what are some of the silliest mistakes probably that you have seen? And how can they overcome all of this?
I would say aspiring audio engineers, I feel like a lot of them, or a lot of the students that I have personally interacted with, are expecting, would go in and expect that, okay, I'm going to start this job and I'm going to work somewhere and I'm going to do this and I'm going to get this amount of salary or this, that. You have to realize that in today's world, you have to be enterprising. In fact, I still believe that those who are enterprising and who can, find a way to build something of their own from scratch can still be audio engineers and still do this. And I'm not saying go ahead and like build a studio or whatever, but what I'm saying is there are so many things to do, right? Like, say for example, somebody who has decent sense of understanding could start a business of building simple acoustic panels. And there's a massive niche for that. Like if you go on Amazon right now, the kind of stuff that I see, there's basic science missing behind a lot of these. So you could do that, or let's say even if you have basic understanding of how physics of sound works, there's so many companies that like import these make these cabinets in India, buy these cheap really bad quality drivers from China, imported from China, build their own speakers, and there are massive businesses that are being made there. But just with basic fundamentals of physics, of understanding how to build speakers, you could start a great business there. I keep telling students very often that you guys should definitely try doing this. And obviously now this is not what a traditional audio engineer or a producer would do, but you could be a producer, engineer, and still do this on the side, right? Because it's still applying that technical side. You have to be enterprising is one thing that I feel that a lot of people forget, that just because you've done a course doesn't mean that you're going to land this whatever job and you're going to do this. There's only going to be so much you can do there, right?
And also I feel like expecting results overnight, right? Like
for sure,
because I have done it in my journey. I stated it's only EQ, it's only compression, it's only like these tools, what are these, like everything is the same, and then ye dal diya chipka diya ho gaya.
Correct.
There are so many of these mistakes that students make, but I think the core philosophy behind it, what many students lack, what I feel from my perspective, is the patience, practice, and your training of your ear. Like the more you listen, and your listening environment as well, right? Like if you're listening to, like I remember when we used to mix songs, that, right?
I know the whole
we used to
story,
mix, then go for a drive, listen to in our car, then go back, and then tweak those things and then come back. These are few tricks, but I'm sure with the new space that you have multiple A, B, C monitoring, and we don't have to do that anymore. Okay, so what is the vision for the next 5 years?
What's the vision for the next 5 years? Man, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I think I'll tell you, building this has been a massive project. It was super I really underestimated the work. I forgot how much effort it takes. So right now I'm just in vacation mode. I keep telling everybody, I'm like, now the studio's built, now the work is done, now at least I can relax for a while.
Wow.
But I would say if I was to give you an answer what the vision is for the next 10 years, I really have found personally a lot of meaning through the academy, and I didn't think that was my thing, to be very honest.
So then, but then why did you start the academy? Because there's so much work that is going on, right?
Yeah, honestly, my real honest reason initially was slightly, I would say, selfish, is that I wanted to train people that I wanted to work inside the studio. Okay. So I thought, dude, what's the best way to find talent? If you can just train them inside the studio the way that you want, you can get talent and you can get new engineers through the studio. That was my real reason. And I thought that great, it helps them. They get to learn. I get good engineers who can do good work and grow out of the space. But I think over the last few years, seeing people build careers, seeing so many students go and do these amazing things, I never thought that I would find as much personal joy out of that. So I think I definitely want to grow the academy, and not just for engineers, even for people who want to produce music, even people who want to build a career in this. And I've realized that there's a lot that these students can sort of learn through a space and an environment like this. And honestly, there are days when you walk into the studio and there are people just sitting around producing music, having fun, having a great time. And I think that's essentially what I wanted this space to be, and it feels amazing when you see that happening. And that I see glimpses of that on every other day, so you'll see somebody sitting in the lobby outside producing music. You'll walk into one room, you'll see somebody's making a hip hop track. You'll walk into another room, you'll see somebody who's making a cover of something, and it's just nice to see. I think that's what I really think. I want to grow that side of things, and I want to be able to help and bring in as many students as I can. And I'm also really enjoying working with some very, very cool and talented musicians, producers, artists, engineers out there. Man, I'll tell you, the kind of skill that I've seen over the last 2-3 years, we definitely were like super basic engineers compared to what these guys are today. And I'll tell you what, also it's also because the access to the kind of stuff that they have, and also maybe better alignment of what they want to do. But definitely I can see some of the mixes that some of these students are doing. In fact, some of the music also some of these students are producing. It's really cool stuff. Yeah.
Over the past few years, I have seen this wave of like, what do you do? And people say, okay, I'm a sound engineer.
Yeah.
And there are so many out there.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
What defines, according to you, a good engineer? Because because so many digital assets are out there. You can learn from them. There are courses out there. And there are so many in-person courses as well, right?
Yeah.
One is what differentiates Grace Park from everybody. And second is like, how do you understand like, okay, this person is going towards something? I mean, it's hard to nitpick and judge anybody, but just like, how do you say, suppose everybody has got a different skill, right? Like say you have 10 students, and those out that one might be great in film sound, one might be wanting to do music, but then he came here and he realized, okay, I am great in game sound. So how do you enable them to choose their career path?
Yeah, I think there's many examples like this. There are many students who come in thinking that they want to become producers, and then they realize that, okay, I can't really produce music or whatever, or they get a reality check sometimes because they see other people in their batch producing, and then they realize, okay, I can see that somebody else can do this better than I can, but this is something that I'm better at doing. And then they pick up that aspect and they build, they shift and mold around it and adapt to it. And suddenly somebody's started become an acoustician who wanted to become a music producer. Or somebody is just now getting into sync sound. Or somebody's doing sound design for films or Foley or whatever, right? So that definitely happens a lot. So the first part of your question, which was what makes us different from other academies, I would say, my personal belief is, and I may be wrong, is that we are more of an experiential learning course. So like I said, this is not like a simulated classroom environment. This is a real world learning environment, and students get to actually learn on the job. So if you make mistakes on the job also, there are consequences like they would be if you were working in a real world environment. So it has its pros and cons, but you actually get to learn, okay, what does it require? What does it mean for me to, actually set up? Like, for example, while we were doing this podcast, we had cable noise right now. So figuring out how to quickly resolve this situation and move forward is what real world jobs are required to be able to. So I think that is one thing. And for me, I learned while building the course over the years, I learned that a very small part of the learning is actually just the classes. It's the stuff that happens around the classes, right? It's the places where students are working with each other to write their music. And then you see like these different, like there's a drummer, there's a bassist, there's a singer-songwriter, and all these people come together, make music, write music, come up with ideas. And we've also started doing a bunch of activities like writing camps, where now we take briefs from our clients. So we did one recently a couple of months ago where we took some briefs from our clients from the studio, and some of our students took part in these writing camps where we had made some 7-8 groups, and these guys went and in 2 days recorded, or rather composed, produced, recorded, mixed, mastered. It wasn't mixed really in 2 days, but they produced something in a span of 48 hours. So I think this sort of experience, learning of working with different people, understanding, studio etiquette, understanding a lot of these other smaller things, that's what makes us different from these other spaces. Yeah.
What is that one new tech that you are kind of exploring in your studio and you're loving it?
I think right now I'm genuinely enjoying the speakers the most.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So so I've spent like a lot of hours over the last month, just like tuning, calibrating and setting up the speakers, and we finally reached a point where the speakers just sound superb. Like they sound so good. It's obviously, since we've shifted from the old studio to the new one, it takes you a while to get used to the new space. It takes you a while to get used to the new room.
Yeah.
But I've been working on some mixes, some masters, some stuff that's released out there, and it's so much it's nice to see that, okay, the stuff that I knew that was holding me back in the older room and the older space, I can see that, with better monitoring, with better speakers, I can do a lot more. So I think I'm at this point in time, I'm really enjoying. That is, I think, the first piece of gear I would say is that, and the second, which is underrated, is artist monitoring. So like personal artist mixes, that has been a game changer. Because now as a recording engineer, you could just sit in the control room and focus on doing your job, which is dialing in the sound and recording, and you don't have to worry about dialing in the headphone mixes for the artists. Yeah. Now you can just give them their own mixer and they can be happy. Happy dialing in their own mixes. So
so there is this is a world wherein you always have a analog or digital fight.
Correct. Yes.
What kind of a person are you?
I feel like there's a new world that's coming out there, which is a blend of two. So I don't know if you know of these. We use this one EQ, which is the Wes Audio Hyperion, and it is essentially a digitally controlled analog piece of gear. Now I literally use it for most of the masters that I do, and the best thing is that every time I recall it in my master session, you have like a plugin that you load in your DAW, and that plugin essentially controls, like, whatever you change on the plugin will also change on the hardware.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's so you
so
connect
the knobs actually change.
Yeah, so the knobs are not moving. It's just like a fader with you'll see the lights on the knob sort of move. So there's like a digital controller inside the hardware unit. And the best part about it is that you don't have to recall any settings, and then you can literally use it as all you have to do is just patch the inputs and outputs, and you're done. You're good to go. So I would say that is the future. I'm honestly, like, any new tech that I'm buying, I'm thinking of that. If that is like, there are a bunch of new EQs and compressors out there that use this new technology, and it's a lifesaver, because like when you're done with the final version and you send it out, and then you get a call saying that, hey, we need to just make this one small change. Can we do this? You don't have to go and dial everything in. It's just easier to do. Yeah, it's much easier to do, and it saves a lot of time. So yeah. Otherwise, I've just realized that for a lot of sessions, sometimes it's hard to use analog hardware, because it's just a pain in the ass to keep dialing it back in. And
nice. Are you more of a recording or a mixing or a mastering guy?
Definitely more of a mastering. I mean, everybody knows. Recording, I want to be. Recording, I definitely want to be, but I have realized that I've not spent as much time recording inside a studio. Like, I see people around me are much quicker at it. Because recently I was put in this position. I'm like, I need to work on my recording chops again. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah. Recording for sure. I enjoy mixing also a fair bit. But I think... a lot of the mix engineers that I work closely with, now I also do stem mastering, so where I get the stems from the mix engineers, and then I can dial in stuff that I want the way I want it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What is the best effect that you always go to?
Best effect that I always go to? Like a effect as in like a plugin, or as a...
Probably both.
Plugin, I would say, would be Q3, FabFilter Q3. And effect that I go to for always, like a reverb, like one tool that I usually use a lot is reverb, but like a specific kind of reverb, which is Valhalla Shimmer, which I like using. Yeah.
So, great. Till now, we spoke about students, we spoke about, the studio, the space, and what it has taken for you to come here. But I want to talk about the business side of it.
Okay.
A lot of the times what happens is our industry is very cost heavy. Okay, so there are equipments that cost you like your entire life savings probably. And right from everything, right? Like there's monitoring, there is amplifiers, there are there are your uh, sound cards and like microphones, so many things. And you can't have just one and be like, okay, mere paas ye hi, right? Like you're running a business. And plus space, which is the biggest recurring investment. So how do you manage costs?
So I think I've been lucky in one way that I know how to build studios. Honestly, if this were to be done, if I was to do this for any of my clients,
you would have made a fortune.
I would have made a fortune for sure. But I don't think it would have been financially viable to do that because the upfront cost investment is huge. So it definitely helps me that I have a team of, I have a brilliant team of carpenters. I mean, like, honestly, I feel grateful every single time I walk into a room. But anyway, I'm digressing. So, I didn't have that cost overhead of having
acoustic.
For like consultancy or like doing. So we did all of this stuff. Like between Borges and I, we did the interiors of the space, the how the space is going to look, how it'll right from where the walls will go to how this place will be put together. So that definitely helped us a lot. A second thing is that the fact that we're doing it in a city like Pune, where honestly the rent is now become closer to what the rent is in Mumbai, but it's still on the lower end. So when we were thinking of the shift, first we were like really jolted. We were like, shit, this is what rent is, because we were paying a lot less in the older space. And that was one of the factors that also that impacts how the overall business works, because that's going to be one of your biggest expenses. And then your other expenses are your human resource, which is your salaries for your engineers, your employees, and then equipment cost. I think this was all, to be honest with you, this was all done over time. None of this happened. All the equipment that I have today is from I have some equipment from the first 100 square feet studio also that I had, which, the Mac from the Windows machine from that studio is still in the studio today. It's in one of the studios. We are still using that old machine. Windows. I mean, it's just a cabinet now, but we've changed the stuff inside. But we still have that machine. And all this equipment was bought slowly over a few years. Like if I was to think about doing this all today, that's not possible. That requires way too much money. So
were there any moments, because there is so much cost involved, and probably there are good months in a business and bad months, and like there is a high recurring cost as well that is there, right? Were there any moments where you felt ki, man, I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel?
It has happened it definitely has happened many times. I think that happens to any business owner. I think I remember this one very clear story once where this was in the old studio in the Bangla Chowk, and I was producing an album for these very good friends of mine. And while I was producing, obviously there was nobody handling calls. Nobody was taking in sessions. Nobody was doing anything. So I was enjoying while I was producing, because I knew I had these guys for the next 3 months. They've booked out the studio for the 3 months. And I know I'm sorry for the 3. And at that point in time, that's all you're thinking about. So the album's done, everything's over. I go back to work, and there is absolutely no work for like a month, 2 months. There's no work coming in. And I'm like, shit, how do I manage? And at this point, like paid rent for 2 months. Now this is all the savings I had. Like 2 months of rent is all I had. And we were also running an ad agency at the point in time, but that's a different story. And there was this one point I remember where I had gotten a booking on that day. Okay. And I had not paid the electricity bill. And the MSCB guys had come and they had removed the meter and taken it because I hadn't paid the electricity bill. And I had to go to one of the people who had who wanted to book later on in the future. I had to go and ask them for some money to be like, can you please pay me this much amount that I know, and you have my word for it that I will give you these many studio hours. And I felt horrible doing it, but I had to take that money, then go back, pay to the MSCP guys, get the meter installed, and then I had to book. So at that point, I was
Wow.
like, dude, this is done. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to tell my parents that, like, this,
Yeah.
I couldn't, this is not going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
But luckily, yeah, thank
From
God,
there
dude, yeah.
to like now. Wow. What is the advice that you would give the like, suppose I want to start a studio, what are these biggest no-nos that you have learned in the journey of your business?
I would say one thing that I've learned is that the studio business today is not just about a per hourly business. Because if you just look at it that way, the math doesn't math. It doesn't make sense.
Math doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to build a studio business, think of different avenues. I think a lot of, and I think this is somewhere that I could have done better, and I still have to figure it out. I think you can use, like, when you have a space like this, content is something that you have free access to, right? You could build up interesting partnerships with new musicians who are coming out. You could, there are so many ways to do this, right?
100%.
Yeah. And there are many different ways that different people have built their businesses around this. So don't just get stuck into, okay, I'm going to book the studio, build the studio for X number of hours a month, and I'm going to make money through that. That's not the real way to make money. That's the advice that I would give. Yeah.
What is the growth mindset that you need to have for an industry like this?
It's a little grueling. I'll tell you why. Growth is it. If you look at any other business, and honestly, over the last few years, I've really, I'm a Marwadi, so I've always enjoyed understanding how businesses work. But if you have, in most businesses, there are very clear drivers for growth where you can bring in revenue, fresh revenue in your existing model. Let's say for any traditional company which works with a lot of businesses, you add in one new business and that will add in X by Z amount to your top line or whatever. With studios or with like a business like this where you're working with musicians, or you're working with an industry where the huge chunk of your audience also, yeah. So in an industry where a huge chunk of your audience also has limited purchasing power. Especially if you're thinking about independent musicians.
Correct.
When you're working with bigger artists, obviously it's not the same case, but that is the tricky bit, and it's not that easy to add in, a huge chunk to your business in terms of revenue. So we've started exploring a lot of interesting tie-ups with a lot of businesses. We work across different industries. So today, we have like 7-8 different sectors through which the studio sort of makes money, which is like we do music for ads, we do a lot of work for films where we provide like our space for people to do their sound design, their mixes and all of that stuff. Then we produce music for independent musicians. We also produce music for films and the like. And apart from that, we also provide our services for recording, mixing, mastering, which is the hourly studio business.
Yeah.
And apart from that, we have the academy, and we also do a separate section where we do voiceovers, and then I have my acoustics business also. So it's all of these things together which
Are beautifully tied.
Yeah, they're beautifully
Weaved.
tied in, but you take one of them out and it doesn't. So to be honest, the hustle is still real. Like there are days where I am also like overwhelmed on a day-to-day
I was
basis.
going to ask you, do you feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, all the time. I was feeling overwhelmed today
Oh.
in the morning when I was
Does this make you feel better?
yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So I wanted to ask you, see, now you have an academy and like for a lot of people, it's a service business, and I mean, you're giving your services to,
correct, to a student.
to the probably the students. Like I'm talking from a perspective of I want to start a studio, or anybody else wants to start a studio. Now, as your studio grows, it's very difficult to find the way you think, the taste that you have, or like or over the years that you have developed, or the experience. So, and it becomes very difficult to hire people like you. like you said in the podcast before, that you started the academy because, like, one way to hire good was like, to train them and then have them with you. Like, that was the initial thought.
Correct.
So how do people like go looking for somebody? Do you all in the academy also have kind of tie-ups with younger generation studio owners that want to start or something like that?
So a lot of these students do end up going and working with newer studio owners or people who want to build their own space or are starting like a small thing of their own where they need engineers. So we do have tie-ups with like a lot of bigger companies and these smaller studios also that are starting out. I would say that, that's a question that even we sometimes struggle with. That, we put out some work, but then the work that we want to be at, the kind of work that we want to be producing varies. And I've honestly made that mistake with a lot of engineers also by being too involved in some of their work. See, because sometimes as a business owner also have to realize when to let go as a business owner and as an engineer, or rather as an engineer, and when to look at it as a business owner. If my clients are happy, but if because a lot of this stuff is personal taste, right? I may not agree with it, but if my client's happy, then then there's nothing wrong with it. Then that's great. But there are scenarios when over a time you see that, okay, cool, people are not really enjoying the kind of work that's coming out of the space. And that's happened in the past. That becomes a tricky phase, or that becomes a tricky situation. So I think what's important is one important trait that I look for in any engineer or producer or whoever that I'm working with is that they should have the ability to reflect back at their own work. And I think that is the kind of people that I truly relate to a lot, and like I work with closely also are people who look back at their work and they're like, okay, we could have done this right. Or like, honestly, I have conversations like this with everybody all the time when we're working inside the studio. So I think doing that helps align everybody's vision with what the end goal is, what sort of a work output you want out of the space. And we've been trying to, we've also noticed that, there are certain things that we could be doing better as a studio. So we've been working on those aspects. So I think it's a continuous process. You can't find one person and then be like, okay, this person's going to do everything, because just like every musician sometimes has hits and misses, and even an engineer will sometimes have hits and misses, and it's a part and parcel of the process. As long as you trust the vision of what the engineer is doing and you can work together with them to do that, I think that's what matters.
Nice. Okay, so again, from a new studio perspective, what are the few essential gears that you would suggest your students or your mentees to kind of, these are like a no-brainer, that these are the first few things that you should invest in?
Yeah, I would say 4 things are needed. One is a good laptop. Without which you can't make anything. So buy a decent laptop, followed by a good pair of speakers. Then you have your audio interface. And then if you don't have a great room, I would say just get another pair of headphones as another set to monitor what you're doing. This is for producers, engineers alike. And then if you're someone who wants to record their own stuff at home and do that, then maybe instead of a headphone, get a microphone. Like at an SM58, you can't go wrong with that, even in an untreated room. Yeah. So
a lot of home studios have come up, especially after COVID. A lot of hobbyists have,
correct.
So then what is the advice that you would have? Why a studio versus what are the stark differences? Okay, this is, man, I can tell this is recorded at home, or like, when should you choose to go to a studio?
I'll tell you what. I have seen people who have good skills with the recording produce great quality recordings in any situation. Like honestly, even if I give you a mic today and I tell, hey Malay, you record this, you've done this.
Yeah.
You won an IRA award on a song where you recorded vocals inside a sofa.
Yeah.
So I think if you know what you're doing, you can record with whatever is at your disposal. So you can make good sounding records with that. And I think we've seen that over the last few years. A good studio is a place to go when you don't know what you're doing. you are lost with what the sound is, and you want to leave that in the hands of professionals who can handle what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you know what you're doing and you've learned how to record stuff and you know what you're doing, I'm sure you can dial in decent sounding recordings even at home. And if you have decent, like, you don't need expensive gear to do that nowadays. But let's say I wanted to choose, okay, I want this kind of mic for this tone. I want to use it with this preamp. I want to be able to dial in. Like, I do a lot of masters today where I can see stuff where cost cutting has happened and stuff has been recorded at home. And no matter, it's the same mix engineer, it's the same mastering engineer, and the vocals have been recorded at home versus recorded professionally by an engineer. You listen to both those records, you'll think one sounds a lot more professional than something that's been recorded at home. And that's the downside, And also not because it's recorded at home, it's been recorded at home by somebody who doesn't know how to record. That's the real issue. Yeah.
I want you to talk a little more or a little bit on ear fatigue.
Yeah.
Okay, because as engineers, as students, as aspiring engineers, and even like you have been constantly thrown at like all kinds of frequencies all the time inside a studio.
Yeah.
And even outside, like the traffic that we listen to, we're constantly listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is it that you do to like kind of reduce the ear fatigue? Because it's a common thing between engineers.
Yeah.
So what are these things that you should look after?
So I had this particularly bad situation, I think a few years ago, where not I wouldn't say a bad situation, but I was like my ears were really fatigued to a point where I couldn't even listen to anything for a while. So it's not something you should take for granted. Yes, we live in a really loud environment. In fact, I read some report that said that a huge percentage of Indians have like high frequency hearing loss by definition, because the environment itself is so loud. So using hearing protection is super important. Two is being cognizant of how much your ears can take. Like if you can, I feel like it's easy to dish out this advice, but it's hard to follow it. But there are days where when you can start seeing that, okay, you're monitoring stuff louder and louder and louder and louder. That's when you know that
I am guilty of it.
I'm sure, I'm sure everybody does this. So I think that's when you know that, okay, you're tired, take a break. But also, it's kind of hard for recording engineers to do because you're on the clock, man. It's a tough space to be in. Like I see these guys, like I've seen some recording sessions that have started at 10 in the morning that go on till like 2 at night. And I wish sometimes clients would understand that it's for their own good that recording engineers should not record more than 8 hours. But then I think sometimes it's just,
gotta do
what you gotta do. And I think our engineers are like
at point with experience also the kind of like skills come in, like okay, there are these things that you have developed with a space and with a microphone and positioning and all of that over time you will understand, okay, like even your ears are fatigued, but you'll still
be like, this will work, I'll figure it out tomorrow. I don't know what I'm listening to right now, but I'll come back tomorrow. Maybe it'll sound good, maybe it'll sound like shit. Let's see which one it is. But
with ear fatigue, I also want to emphasize on the fact that current generation and even we have started focusing a lot on the work-life balance. So what do you do to like completely like detach from work? Do you ever, because you run a business, it's not like even on vacation, I'm sure you will be like clients calling, fighting the fire, So how do you detach completely? What is the work-life balance that you follow?
I am trying to figure that out. I don't have an answer.
I love the honest answer.
I'm trying to figure that out. I don't. So the thing is, I'm the kind of person who I can't sit still, I feel. I mean, off late, I've started to build that part of me on purpose, because I've realized that it gets too much after a point. So I don't have an answer to that, but I'll tell you that running any business, you're not going to know. You're not going to be able to switch off entirely. I think what you will realize is you develop a thick skin after a point. Like there have been days where, like I'll tell you a funny story that happened the other day. I was feeling really sick, I was conducting a class. We were doing like physics of sound, and it's usually what I enjoy teaching. I was super tired, and that day I was like, this is the new, we had built up this new desk, everything. And while teaching, I spilled coffee
Oh my God.
on all of the gear inside the studio, and I'm like, shit. But I was just like, dude, at this point in time, if this goes, it goes. Like now, and there are like things, this is an example, but like there are things like this happen all the time. There's one day that someone's unhappy with something that's come in, and they have an issue with something, or you know what happens inside a studio. There's just, I think you grow a thick skin to it, and then you realize that if you can take a step back and just see that, okay, this is not as big as it seems, and that you've done this 100 times and you know how to navigate out of the situation. So I think that's important. But I definitely should take some time and use that time to reflect, and which I probably will. Now, like I said, I'm on vacation mode, so I'm going to use this next few months to do that. Yeah.
Nice. Last probably question.
Yeah, please go for it.
If you were not in this business, what would you choose?
This is a good question, because I also keep asking myself this. So I very clearly remember I was doing my majors in physics. There were two paths that I was going to go down on. So there was either I pursue academia and I study physics full time, or I do this. Like I start a studio.
You would have been an academician.
Yeah, I could have been like a
Dr.
teaching
Ronak.
physics or whatever. I could have been doing some stuff like that. Who knows?
Wow.
Because a lot
still
of
teaching physics.
I am. That's the best part, right? So that's the part of that life that I connect to every single time when I'm doing that. And a lot of my people, like my friends who were learning or who were in the same course as I was, are now in Germany, who are doing like deep research in physics and stuff. And these were my peers, and I'm like, I could have been either living that life or I could have been doing this. And I do sometimes really miss learning. Like I do genuinely miss, spending weeks and months just focusing on one problem and trying to figure that out. And that's what I loved about physics, or like trying to solve that. And that's something I definitely miss. But I feel like I have newer versions of those problems. So I apply a lot of that in, say, building a space, or in designing how this whole thing is put together. So there are parts of physics, and I do consultancy for a lot of people on the side also, where I apply that physics and that research side of mine, which I've been doing this year, which I've really been enjoying. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Any few last words towards the end that you want to piece of advice to your future students?
I know what I want to say is essentially, I think when you're young and you're at that age, you're coming to explore all of this stuff. A lot of the students don't realize the responsibility that lies beyond at the end of this course. And when you come into doing something like this also, you should be aware of, what the expectation would be when you, say, finish a course like this. And so I would say, use the time that you have during that course as best as you can. And don't be afraid to ask things, to fail, to try out stuff. I unfortunately feel like there's a lot of social pressure. And I've been trying to figure out how to solve that in a batch, like in a set of students. But like everybody looks at somebody. So because we have some students who've been doing this for 4 years, so they'd be like, oh no, I'm not that good. But you started 1 year back, buddy. You're not going to be that good. He's been doing it for 5 years. Don't compare yourself to him. Just keep your head down, put in the effort, do the work, and you'll make it. And I've had people who've just started doing this like a year ago and who've been doing it full time. And I've had people who've been doing it for a long time also. So, as long as you put in the effort and you know what you're focusing on, and you use all of this stuff to build some strong work at the end of the course, you're going to be fine.
I mean, and of course, there's a learning curve till the end, right? Like we are still learning, and there'll always be somebody who's way better than you, and somebody who's way behind you.
Correct.
Like, so you always are taking those baby steps ahead. Okay, so I'm gonna have like a few rapid fire questions.
Let's go.
Headphones or monitoring?
Monitoring.
Really?
Always.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Okay. Reverb or delay or um, I don't know what what effects can I use there. But yeah.
I would say reverb.
Okay. Okay. Mic preamps.
Let's go.
Clean or colored?
Colored.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I would say that I personally like colored stuff for sure.
Wow. Okay. A perfect take or creative nuances.
Creative nuances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Live sound or studio.
I mean, yeah. I am. You're asking a guy who has 7 studios.
No,
What
but
do
I
you
mean,
think?
see, the thing is, there can be something that you might have after studio hours.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I find, like, I have crazy respect for
For
live
live
sound
guys.
engineers, man. These guys are such hardworking people. I've seen, like, hung out with them many times, and at parties also, the conversation is always that how do you guys manage to do this? And
On the go mixing so many people.
Man, first of all, on the go mixing. You're working those ridiculous hours. 3 is you have a gig to go somewhere, you have a flight to catch, you're leaving at some ungodly hour. You get there, you don't get what you've asked for ever. So at least here, when you're sitting in a studio, you know what to expect, right? So you're just like, okay, whatever can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah.
So you go there, and then this happens. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and then you still have to find a way to put on a good show. And if the show doesn't go well, it's your fault, which sucks. But I mean, unfortunately, that's how it's seen.
Yeah.
So they work with really tough circumstances, but I feel like the ones who really enjoy it really thrive doing it. So I have crazy respect for them. I don't think I'm cut out to do it. I love sitting
More
in
of a
my
controlled-
air conditioned room,
conditioned.
air conditioned room. Yeah,
Yeah.
just listening to that same kick drum or snare for
Nice.
hours at end. Yeah,
Wow.
that's my jam.
Any new plugins that you swear by?
Any new plugins that I swear by?
See, there are old which you have been using and okay, but like there are so many in the market, right?
There's too many, man. That's the problem.
Okay. Name any two.
Any two? Soothe is a great plugin. And the second one I would say is, I think the new Isotope, the new set of Isotope mastering tools. Very, very, very good set of tools. I mean, we've used them forever, but I really love how every year they bring something new to the table that takes the offerings of that Isotope suite to another level. So yeah, I would say those two.
Wow. Okay. Name 3 mics which are your all-time favorite.
U87, 184, 58.
Best. Okay. So now I won't ask you anything about audio.
Yeah,
Okay. Are you more of a coffee or a tea person?
coffee.
Really?
Yeah.
अभी तो you अच्छा है.
Yeah, but yeah.
You like
But yeah, you
mountains or
should see in
beaches?
the morning, I have my first coffee at home, then I come here, then
Have
I
another
make
coffee.
my...
Chai.
No,
Oh,
I'll
coffee.
have like my pour over.
Wow.
Yeah, then I'll make that. Yeah, so I'm a coffee person for sure.
Are you a beach person or a mountain person?
Mountain.
Really? Do you like Pune or Mumbai? Are you a morning person or a night person?
I'm definitely a night person, but forced to be a morning person.
Would you rather prefer listening to music on a vinyl or Spotify?
Vinyl for sure, yeah.
Why?
Just because Spotify is better quality. I'm not arguing that vinyl sounds better than or vinyl sounds better than Spotify or anything like that, but just the experience of listening to music on vinyl I think it's the whole experience of
Experience
like
part of it.
actually owning the record, putting it down, playing it. That has a vibe to it, yeah.
Okay. Windows or Mac?
Mac for sure. Windows also slightly, but I would say Mac. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I would say Mac for sure.
I'm gonna put those cricket sounds that come behind. Krr, krr, krr. Well, wow, this has been equally like inspiring to see where you have come all the way from where I've known you to like nostalgic for me a little bit. So thank you so much.
Yes.
And that's all the time that we have today. A huge
There's
thank you.
There's one small thing that I want to say.
Yes.
That a lot of people probably don't know this, but the reason why the Academy is here today is because of this guy.
Hey.
So yeah, and the story behind that is that we were once supposed to go to Goa
Yeah.
on this small trip that he convinced me to go for, which was actually a work trip. We were going to go for NFTC.
NFTC.
For the Film Bazaar,
Yeah.
because you thought I could network with some people for the studio there.
Yeah.
And we decided to drive. And at that point in time, I had tried running the Academy for a year or two. And it had, I think, the second, third year, it had failed. It was not doing well at all. And on the way there, I remember you telling me, let's just try doing this. Why don't we try restructuring things this way and do it? I'm like, yeah, actually, you make a interesting argument. You make a very valid point. And then I came back with, renewed energy to do it. And thank you so much for that motivation.
Thank you.
Like you don't know how that one seed or one thought that you put in can. So I'm very grateful to you for doing that.
I'm glad where it is today, right?
Yeah.
And so many students are being benefited out of it. And thank you so much for giving time. I really enjoyed this conversation because I think it was long due that we actually spoke on sound and the business of it.
Yeah.
We always talk this, we talk everything else but this, right? And thank you so much for hosting me in this beautiful studio.
Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, and for our listeners, if you are an aspiring musician or a sound engineer, I highly, highly recommend check out Grace Park Audio. And to learn more about Grace Park Audio and their academy, you can visit their website, grey-parkaudio.com. Thanks once again, Ronak, Nikita, and Sujal for being here. It was great to be in this new space. Until next time, keep making some noise and don't forget to make it sound good.
Nice.
Signing off. This is Malay from Sound Dada. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.